Have you ever heard your name when you were completely alone? Not imagined it, not a sound that almost sounded like it, I mean clearly, deliberately, like someone standing right behind you. Because I did. And I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened. I am not the kind of woman who scares easily. My name is Eloin Viamont. I'm 67 years old. I spent over 4 decades as a school headmistress. Order, logic, discipline, that's how I've lived my entire life. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for updates. I don't believe in ghosts, never have. In fact, I used to correct children when they claimed they saw things. Shadows, whispers, imaginary friends. I would tell them calmly, your mind is playing tricks on you. And every time I believed it. Until that night. It was around 7:40 in the evening. Quiet, ordinary, the kind of quiet that feels almost too still if you pay attention long enough. I had just finished my tea. The kettle had already cooled. The television was off. I don't like unnecessary noise. I have routines, very strict ones. Every evening I check the doors, twice. I check the windows. I write down what I've done in a small notebook I keep by the kitchen counter. It might sound excessive, but habits keep the mind sharp. Especially at my age. And that night, everything was exactly where it should be. Locked doors, sealed windows, no visitors, no calls. So let me ask you something, if everything is secured, if you are absolutely certain you are alone, then who says your name? Because as I sat there in my living room, just staring at nothing in particular, I heard it. Eloin. Soft, clear, close. I froze. Not startled, not confused, frozen. Because it didn't sound distant. It didn't echo. It sounded like someone standing just outside the hallway, calling me like they knew me. I told myself it was nothing, a passing sound, maybe the pipes, maybe my mind filling in silence the way it sometimes does. You've ignored things like that before, haven't you? So I stood up, slowly, calmly. I even remember adjusting my sleeve like nothing was wrong, and I walked toward the hallway. Empty. Every room empty. No movement, no sound, no open door, nothing out of place. And yet something felt wrong, not dangerous, not yet, just wrong. So I turned around to go back to my seat. And that's when I heard something move behind me. Not loud, not fast, just enough to tell me I wasn't alone anymore. What would you do if the voice that called your name didn't sound like a stranger? Because that's the part I haven't told you yet. When I heard that movement behind me, I didn't turn immediately. Something in me, something instinctive told me to wait, to listen. And in that silence I realized something that made my skin tighten. That voice, it wasn't unfamiliar. I couldn't place it, not exactly, but it wasn't random either. It carried a tone, a softness, the kind of familiarity you don't question at first because it feels like it belongs. I slowly turned around. Nothing. Empty hallway, still air, the same picture frame on the wall, the same narrow table beneath the mirror. Everything exactly as it had been. So tell me, at that point, would you convince yourself it was nothing? Or would you start questioning your own mind? Because I did what I've always done, I chose logic. I told myself, Eloin, you're tired, that's all this is. And just as I was about to step back into the living room, Eloin, come here. This time it wasn't soft. It was clearer, closer. And it came from the hallway again. I felt it then, not fear, not yet, something colder than that, awareness. I stepped forward, slowly, each foot deliberate. The wooden floor beneath me barely made a sound, but somehow, the silence felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. And then I noticed it. The mirror. It was slightly tilted. Not broken, not fallen, just off. That mirror has hung in that exact spot for over 15 years. I don't touch it. No one does. So how did it move? My heart started to beat faster now, not racing, just heavier, more noticeable. I cleared my throat and said, who's there? Nothing answered. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence pressing in from every direction. So I turned again, slowly, intending to leave the hallway. And that's when I heard it. The step. Behind me. Not imagined, not faint. A real physical step. And before I could even react, Elowind, right behind me. If something in your house started moving, would you still try to explain it away? Because I did, even after that voice spoke right behind me. I didn't scream, I didn't run. I just stood there, my back stiff, my breath shallow, trying to convince myself that what I heard had some kind of explanation. There has to be one. There always is, isn't there? Slowly I turned. Nothing. No one standing behind me, no shadow slipping away, no sound of retreating footsteps. Just that same narrow hallway, quiet, still, untouched. And yet everything felt different. The air had changed. It was colder now, not dramatically, but enough that I could feel it on my skin. That subtle kind of cold that doesn't belong indoors. I stepped back into the living room, trying to regain control of myself. Focus, Eloin, think. I scanned the room carefully, the couch, the table, the curtains. And then I saw it. The chair. The one I had been sitting in just minutes ago. It had moved. Not across the room, not dramatically, but enough that I knew without a single doubt that it was no longer in the position I left it in. It was now angled toward the hallway. Watching it, I felt something twist in my stomach. Tell me, how do you explain that? Forgetfulness, carelessness? No. I am many things, forgetful is not one of them. I took a slow step toward the chair, then another. The silence followed me. And then, a sound. From the kitchen. A soft creak, like a cabinet door being opened slowly. I stopped walking. My heart was louder now, not just heavy pounding. I didn't want to check. For the first time that night, I truly didn't want to know. But I did. I walked into the kitchen. And there it was. One of the cupboard doors slightly open. I stared at it. I hadn't opened it, I knew I hadn't. And just as that realization settled in, you forgot me. The voice again. Different this time. Not calling me. Not inviting me. Accusing me. My breath caught. Forgot who? Forgot what? I turned slowly, my entire body tense. And that's when I felt it. A hand. Resting on my shoulder. Soft. Deliberate. Real. What if the voice calling you wasn't trying to scare you? What if it was trying to remind you? Because the moment that hand touched my shoulder, something inside me shifted. I didn't turn immediately this time. I should have. Every instinct says you turn, you react, you pull away, but I didn't. I stood there frozen not from fear but from something heavier. Recognition. The hand wasn't cold. That's what confused me. It wasn't the icy, unnatural touch you'd expect from something not alive. It felt familiar, gentle, almost hesitant. And suddenly the fear started to fade. Replaced by something far worse. Confusion. I slowly turned around. Nothing. No one standing there. No shadow, no movement, just empty space where something had clearly been seconds before. My breathing grew uneven. And then, without warning, a memory surfaced. Sharp, sudden, uninvited. A voice. Not from tonight. From years ago. Eloin, one day you'll hear me again. I hadn't thought about that sentence in decades. Not once. Not even by accident. And yet now, it came back so clearly it felt like it had been spoken yesterday. Marceline. My sister. You see, I wasn't always alone. There was a time, long before this quiet house, long before my routines, when I had someone. Someone who knew me better than anyone ever did. And I left her. No, that's not quite right. I cut her off. We argued bitterly about things that don't even matter anymore. Pride, control, old wounds we refused to let heal. And I made a decision. I chose silence. Years passed, then more years. Letters came, I didn't answer them. Calls were made, I ignored them. Until one day they stopped. She died. Alone. No goodbye, no closure, no final words. Just absence. Tell me something, how do you live with that? Because I thought I had. I buried it, locked it away, convinced myself it didn't matter anymore. But standing there in that kitchen, with that voice still echoing in my ears, I realized something terrifying. I hadn't forgotten her. I had chosen to. And just then, I caught it. In the reflection of the hallway mirror. A figure, standing behind me. Still silent. Watching. My breath caught in my throat. I turned. Nothing. Again. Gone. But this time I didn't deny it. I didn't explain it away. I whispered, barely able to hear myself. Marceline. Silence. And then, you left me. What if the thing haunting you isn't trying to hurt you? What if it just wants you to finally listen? Because when I heard those words, you left me, something inside me broke in a way fear never could. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just stood there, and for the first time that night I stopped trying to explain it. Because there was nothing left to explain. I had spent years telling myself I did the right thing, that distance was necessary, that some relationships are better left behind. I repeated it so many times it became truth. But standing there in that quiet kitchen with that voice, her voice, I realized something. It was never truth. It was avoidance. I swallowed hard and spoke, my voice trembling in a way I hadn't felt in decades. I didn't know how to fix it. Silence. Then I felt it again. That hand. On my shoulder. Gentle, steady, real. But this time I didn't pull away. I closed my eyes. And for a brief moment, just a moment, the cold in the air softened. Not gone, just different, like something had shifted, like something had finally been acknowledged. I hear you, I whispered. No response. No voice, no movement. Just silence. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt lighter. Slowly I opened my eyes and turned. Nothing. The hallway, the living room, the kitchen, all exactly as they should be. Still ordinary. Empty. And just like that, it was over. Or at least that's what I thought. Because the next morning, when I walked into the hallway, something caught my attention immediately. The mirror. Perfectly straight. Not tilted, not off. Exactly aligned, as if it had never moved at all. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, I had imagined that too. But then I saw something else. On the table beneath it. A letter. Folded neatly. My name written on the front. Eloind. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I didn't remember placing it there. I didn't remember writing it. And yet the handwriting was familiar. Painfully familiar. I opened it. The words were simple, short, final. I waited for you to remember. That was all. No explanation, no anger. Just that. So let me ask you. What have you buried so deeply that it might one day come back looking for you? Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't a voice in the dark. It isn't a shadow in the hallway. It isn't even the feeling of a hand on your shoulder when no one is there. It's the realization that something you left behind never left you. I told you I heard my name when I was alone. But I wasn't alone. I just didn't recognize who was still waiting. And maybe, just maybe, some voices don't disappear. They just wait. Until you're finally ready to listen. If this gave you chills, comment ILISTNED below. And tell me, have you ever heard something you couldn't explain? Because some stories don't end when people disappear. Sometimes, that's exactly when they begin.